We got another new head coach to talk about in the ranks of the American Conference. Coming over from Conference USA, it's the Florida Atlantic Owls, and there's a new head man in town. Willie Taggart is gone. Enter former Texas head coach Tom Herman. This guy thrives winning in group of five programs, and Florida Atlantic should be no different. This team made a big splash in the transfer portal, especially at the quarterback position, but this team may lack the depth needed to compete in the American Athletic. Can FAU prove some people wrong, be able to play for a conference title in their first year in the American Athletic, or will this Owls team need to take some time to adjust to the system under Tom Herman and get some depth? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel, previewing and predicting all 133 FBS-level college football teams this summer. That's what I intend to do. And hey, we're getting really close, but guys, that means I'm doing your favorite team. If I haven't done so already, or maybe I have and you want to see my thoughts, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. You can know when all my videos get uploaded. But hey, if you guys want to help support my channel in more ways than just that, you're doing one right now by watching the video. You guys can gladly do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else you guys can think of to help me support my channel. Whatever you guys are able to do would mean a lot to me. So let's go ahead and talk about the FAU Owls in 2023. Hey, how do we do things around here? Well, we're going to go through a roster overview and look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, as well as taking a look at the 2023 Owls football schedule, and we'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. So without further ado, let's talk about FAU in 2023. Excuse me, thought I had to sneeze for a minute. I did not. Okay, N'Kosi Perry is going to be gone out of this quarterback room. Was the primary starter last season. 2,712 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Pretty solid stats here. Was also the team's third leading rusher at 6 rushing touchdowns. He was a pretty solid player for this team. Of course, the former Miami transfer is gone. And no, that is not Willie Taggart, the head coach. That is Willie Taggart Jr., who also leaves the program through 7 passes, only completed 2 of them, was wide receiver quarterback last season, decided to put him in the quarterback room here as that is a loss for the Florida Atlantic Owls. This team made some splashes in the transfer portal, and none as big as getting former Texas and formerly Nebraska Husker quarterback Casey Thompson. That is a huge move out of the transfer portal for this team. That is a big get, and Casey Thompson has got a lot of talent. He has shown what he is capable of, and if he can play at his best, boy, the FAU Owls really got a winner there in the transfer portal with Casey Thompson. You're also getting Daniel Richardson, a transfer coming over from a MAC program in Central Michigan. Running back room, who do they lose? Well, Marvin Scott is going to be gone. He's another former Nebraska transfer, only 18 carries last season. And then Johnny Ford leaves as well, 135 yards and the touchdown last season. But your leading rusher, a 1,000-yard rusher, and Larry McCammon does return. 1,004 yards to be exact on 194 carries, 7 touchdowns for him last season, as well as Zuberi Mobley, 534 yards and 3 touchdowns last season. And then you also get a transfer coming over in Kobe Lewis. He is a 2-star player coming out of high school, or formerly 2-star player coming out of high school. He's the transfer coming over from Purdue. So pretty good stuff there out of the running back room for Florida Atlantic. In the wide receiver room, Jamal Endrine is going to be gone. He was the second leading receiver, 500. Edrine, not Endrine. Edrine, apologies for any mispronunciations, but he's going to be gone at 570 yards, 6 touchdowns last year. That being said, LaJohntay Wester, Jaquan Burton, Tony Johnson, those were your first, third, and fourth leading receivers last season, and then Larry McCammon ended up being the 5th leading receiver on the team last season. So you get all those guys coming back. Of course, Wester, Burton, Johnson in that wide receiver room. And then tight end-wise, Carter Boatwright does come back. But then you are also getting some transfers coming over, some very, very talented transfers, might I add. Elijah Brown transfers in. He's over from Alabama. That's a big get whenever you see that script A. And then Miami has a transfer coming into this program as well in Khalil Brantley. When you take a look at the offensive line, Federico Marangis, Chaz Neal, my apologies, and Malcolm Lamar, some players coming back. Owl fans appreciate it if you help me out on that offensive line. But all in all, the team, I think when you look at the surface, has some pretty solid players. Depth, again, maybe a little bit of a question surrounding this entire team, except in one position that I think they have a lot of nice players. But all in all, I really like what this offense is looking like for Florida Atlantic this season. When you take a look at the defense and what to expect, well, again, starting out with the defensive line, as of course we usually do. You are getting some big losses on that defensive line as Keem Green and Jalen Joyner are going to be gone. Green, 13 tackles last year, and Jalen Joyner, 9 tackles. So actually not super big losses, but again, you do lose some depth in that defensive line room. Who do you return? Well, Latrell Jean, I believe, was the leading tackler among defensive linemen last season. 25 tackles, 2.5 sacks. Not a team that generated a ton of sacks last year. So Jean tied for the team lead in sacks from last season. Evan Anderson, Chris Jones, and Jacob Merrifield also all do return to this defensive line. In the linebacking room, well, you do lose some solid players here as well. Jamie Petway is gone, 49 tackles, a sack for this team last season. And then Jaleel McCray is also gone, 33 tackles, half a sack, and a pick last season. You do get some solid pieces back, though, some very solid pieces back. Eddie Williams was the team's second leading tackler, also tied for the team lead with that 2.5 sacks from last season. John Wester, Courtney McBride were also some very solid players for this team, as well as Morvin Joseph. And you get a transfer coming over in Desmond Tisdall as well. He's a former 4-star out of high school coming over from Auburn. And then when you go ahead and take a look at the defensive back room, Teha Young is a big loss. He had 7 passes defended, 2 interceptions. Both of them he returned for touchdowns. 47 tackles was good for 6th on the team last season. That's a very solid defensive back they're losing. But man, if you want to talk about a team that maybe does not have quite as much depth as some other teams in this conference, hey, this is a position group that does have some pretty solid depth. Armani Eli Adams was the leading tackler last year, 69 tackles, 7 passes defended. He comes back. Dwight Toombs, Romaine Mungan, Michael Antoine, Jaden Williams, Damon Hill, Justin McKitchen. Oh, and they brought in a transfer just for good measure. Jaron Morris is going to be a pretty solid player for this defensive back room as well. Your head coach, as mentioned before, is Tom Herman. Offensive coordinator, Charlie Fry. Your defensive coordinator is Rock Bellantoni. As we take a look at the Owls' football schedule for 2023, any game at home is going to be underlined, and any game on the road will be in italics or the slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Owls are going to be able to win fairly easily. Any game in yellow is, whoa, the other team will put up a fight, but hey, I still think that's a win for the Florida Atlantic Owls. And when you take a look at any game that's highlighted in red, of course, you guys know what that means. That is a loss. Week 1 should start out swimmingly against Monmouth, a program from the FCS ranks. That should be a win for Florida Atlantic. Coming into week 2, pretty underrated game right here. FAU and Ohio could be a very, very solid matchup. Ohio might be one of the favorites in the Mid-American Conference this season. They got a lot of very nice talent there on that team. But I think the Owls are just going to be able to edge them out. I think with Casey Thompson and company, I know Casey Thompson is not like a top 25 quarterback. He's not great. He doesn't have superb film, but man, has he made some great plays over his years. He's a very good quarterback with a lot of returning talent in this wide receiver room. Running back wise, they should be pretty solid as well. Defensively, I think there are some guys that are going to step up and especially going to be able to stop whatever Ohio's going to throw at them with the passing attack. This Owl secondary will be able to do so. So I think you start out 2-0 there. You get a win against the Ohio Bobcats. But then you got a couple Power 5 opponents on the schedule that I don't think the Owls are going to have much chance to win in. Clemson is a team that I think is going to improve offensively. Garrett Riley coming in at offensive coordinator. That defense, I think, will be able to get back up to Clemson standard this season. There's a lot of talent there. Don't see the Owls having much luck on the road in Death Valley. On the road in Champaign against the Fighting Illini, maybe they'll have a lot more luck than they did with Clemson, but definitely don't think they're going to be able to pull out that win there. Illinois is a team that I really like. They're getting a major upgrade at quarterback with Luke Altmaier coming in. There's a lot of talent returning. That defense does lose a lot in the secondary, so maybe Casey Thompson can make them pay. Again, the Casey Thompson, a quarterback that is familiar with this Illinois team, again, played at Nebraska last season. But nonetheless, still think it's a win for the Fighting Illini this season. So now we enter into American Athletic play. The first ever American Athletic game for the FAU Owls is against the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. And to be quite honest, I do not know what to make of this Tulsa team this season. Look, I think they got a lot of great talent, especially at the quarterback position. His name is escaping my mind right now, but I think that's a very solid player that they have there. A lot of good players in the skill positions. Defense has some solid pieces. as well. Then you have Kevin Wilson coming in at head coach. There is some change within this Tulsa program as well. It's a team that I could see being really good, really bad. It's kind of a 50-50 shot here for Tulsa with me. I think they play in a lot of very close games, but I think Florida Atlantic is going to be able to notch out Tulsa in this Week 6 game right after the Owls come off their bye week. And then on the road against South Florida, I think will be a win for them as well. South Florida is a team that I could see making a jump in American Athletic play this season, but I don't know if it's going to be a substantial jump. I don't know if they're going to be able to jump into being a bowl game contender all of a sudden. Maybe 3 or 4 wins. That's, again, a big improvement from where this team has been in years past. Sure, I can definitely see that, but it's beating a team like Florida Atlantic with some of the talent they have on the front ends and the first, maybe even second strings. No, I do not think so. I think the Owls, maybe the Bulls make it competitive, but the Owls walk away with the win. And then I don't think Florida Atlantic going to be able to beat UTSA. I think that's going to pick up their 3rd loss of the season. Now, Florida Atlantic, again, familiar with the team coming over from Conference USA, but there's too much talent on this Roadrunner team. Frank Harris comes back, and even though Zachary Franklin is gone, there is a plethora of talent in that wide receiver room. Look at me digging into my vocabulary bag today. Plethora. What a word. So you used that word in a video today, I guess I will say. But anyways, getting off track. The defense should be pretty solid for UTSA here as well, but it is definitely that offense that highlights that team. Frank Harris and company are amazing, and I don't think the Owls have enough to be able to stop UTSA. So I think that picks up their 3rd loss there. And then on the road at Charlotte, I think is going to be a win for Florida Atlantic. I do not think Charlotte is going to be that great of a football team this year. I don't think they project well. That's a team, when you take a look at Charlotte, I think is going to really struggle their first season as an American Athletic opponent. And Florida Atlantic should easily be able to win that game, in my opinion. On the road at UAB. Now, this is an interesting scenario here because I do have them losing this game. However, and again, the reason why I have them losing this game is I think the physicality that UAB possesses on defense be a little too much for the Owls, and UAB going to be able to walk away with a win. However, with all that being said, I'm not necessarily buying the head coaching hire of Trent Dilfer quite yet. I don't necessarily buy into that coaching staff quite yet, but I do think UAB has a lot of talent on that football team. They've been pretty good in years past. I think they got some really nice pieces here on this team this season, and I think they're going to be pretty competitive in their first season as an American Athletic team. Where they have been in previous years, no, not by a mile, but I do think UAB will be competitive. I think they're going to pull off some wins. It's a road game for Florida Atlantic. It's a familiar opponent from Conference USA. I think UAB gets them here as FAU drops to what would that be now? 5-4 is what I have them at. But I believe that they will clinch their bowl eligibility with a win against the East Carolina Pirates. That's a team that is going to be new look, especially offensively, as you lost Holton Ahlers at quarterback, Keaton Mitchell at running back. Some really good wide receivers are gone off that team. Now, defensively, while there are some good pieces coming back in the secondary, it's a position grouping that loses a lot there as well. East Carolina, I still think should be a very solid, very competitive, very good, or maybe not very good, but pretty solid football team. I think they'll be competitive here, but I do think Florida Atlantic has a little too many weapons on the offensive side, and I think the defense will be able to slow down this new-look East Carolina offensive attack. So that's a win for me there, but I also do think they're going to drop that next game of the season to the Tulane Green Wave. Too much talent on that team. Michael Pratt's returning a lot of weapons. That defense was stellar last year. It will be again this year. That's a team that can make a New Year's Six bowl game again this season. Too much talent for Tulane. FAU goes down. And I also think they lose that game to Rice at the end of the season. Rice, do not count them out this season. Do not be surprised if you see some teams lose to Food this season because JT Daniels coming in at quarterback, and even though he hasn't lived up to the hype that he got coming out of high school, he's got some good weapons there with Rice. Defense is a little suspect for me, but I think Rice is going to be able to pull off this win against Florida Atlantic in the final week, which leads me to a record of 6-6. Not bad, not a bad season for Tom Herman's first year at this program at all. There are some tricky games on the schedule. You're playing in a pretty competitive conference, especially once it gets towards the top. Now, hey, you do get UTSA, Tulane at home, but I think it's going to be maybe a little bit of a struggle at times for Tom Herman's first year, but all in all, pretty solid season. I think they can nicely build off this into 2024. But that's my preview prediction for the Owls. Hey, remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video.